Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Going to read from Gauranga, the Golden Incarnation of Divine Love by His Holiness Jayapataka Swami. Reading from the last section of the book, Jagannatha, Puri and later Pastimes. Lord Chaitanya's eagerness to see Lord Jagannath. The next day, Lord Chaitanya happily went to see Lord Jagannath. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu usually saw Jagannath from a distance, standing behind the column of Garud. Because he had not seen Lord Jagannath for 15 days, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu felt great separation from him. The Lord went early in the morning and he was non-stop looking at the deity's face until noon. He couldn't stop. He was so happy to see Jagannath's face. Normally, if we take darshan for a few seconds and we are satisfied, but Lord Chaitanya was having darshan of the Lord for hours. There is so much reciprocation between Lord Jagannath and Lord Chaitanya. For 15 days before the Rath Yatra, the deity had been out of sight, so now Lord Chaitanya was so hungry to see him. This shows that the deity is actually an incarnation of Krishna. We should never think that the deity is an idol or statue or something. If we are not getting this experience, that Lord Chaitanya is getting it simply because we are very neophyte. As we advance in our devotional service, we can see the Lord in his deity form. In great eagerness, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu crossed the meeting hall and entered the room where food was offered, just to see the face of Lord Jagannath. This is described as Maryada Langhana, or violation of the regulative principles. This indicates that one should not come very near a superior. Both the Lord's deity form and the spiritual master should be seen from a distant place. Otherwise, it is said, familiarity breeds contempt. Sometimes coming too near the deity or the spiritual master degrades the neophyte devotee. Personal servants of the deity and the spiritual master should therefore always be very careful, for negligence may overcome them in their duty. Lord Chaitanya was feeling so much spontaneous love for Lord Jagannath that he transgressed some of the normal rules, like not going into the Bhoga Mandir where the Lord is eating his prasadam, but he couldn't wait to see the Lord. He went very close and saw the Lord out of his intense love. Sometimes transgressing a rule because of love is permitted because it is for a higher purpose. We can't imitate that. Here there is some general advice being given that we should not be too close to the deity or too close to the spiritual master. Maybe when we get very close to the deity, you may see that there is some mark from the makers or something. We might start to focus on some material aspects of the deities, which are not very important at all. If we see from a little more distance, we get the general beauty of the Lord, so that is better for our devotion. Similarly, if we come very close to the Guru, we may just focus on some small details and get distracted. Someone who is very critical, they may find fault with anything. That's why you have to be careful when you are very close serving the deity or the spiritual master, not to be distracted by fault finding. Rath Yatra pastimes and King Pratap Rudra. The next day, everybody got up in the dark and took an early morning bath. Then they watched the ceremony of bringing Jagannath down from the temple to the chariot. There are 3 chariots and each one has different number of wheels. There is no steering wheel, so the way they steer is to put some wooden blocks for the wheels to slow down on one side so it turns the other way. It weighs a lot and there are no ball bearings on the wheels, so it takes 500 strong people to pull the chariot. When they take the deities down from the temple, they have cushions like pillows for each step. With this pillow, they tie Jagannath's waist and legs with silken ropes. Jagannath is gigantic. He is more than 2 meters tall and he is very broad and heavy. First they move Balaram, they lean him forward, then pull his feet out forward so that he goes to the next step. He lands on the pillow and the pillow explodes and then the fillings fly up the air. You can hear the pillows explode. For Baldev, they have a big white fan which is about 4 meters high in the air. In the front, they have 2 rows of priests, and in the first rows, they are fanning with chamar fans. Some priests are banging on the big gongs. There must be 1 or 200 on each side banging in unison, bomb, bomb. You can actually hear it from kilometers away. It is tremendous sound. Just moving Jagannath is a whole big pageantry. Once he is on ground level, it is like he is walking. As he is moving, the fans are moving. While all the people wave the chamars, the white whisk fans, and in front of that there is the bomb bomb, the beating of the gongs. It is really a tremendous pageantry, like some kind of royal procession. Once the Lord was on the cart and the chariot was moving, Lord Chaitanya organized the devotees into 7 kirtan parties. Later there were 3 more. It is described that Vakreshwar Pandit was dancing in one party, Nityananda Prabhu was the head dancer in the other, Advaita Acharya in other, and Haridas Thakur in the other. These were all the big dancers. Even Advaita Acharya was very old. He was 75 years old by that time, but he was the chief dancer in one party. They didn't have a loudspeaker for the kirtan leaders, so they would have 1 kirtan singer and 5 responders. 5 people would sing with the lead singer, and whatever he would sing, they would immediately pick up the tune and sing with him. So it was amplified 5 times. Each kirtan party would chant its own tune and have its own devotees, and each kirtan party could be heard within a certain limit. Then there would be another kirtan party, so they would have many kirtan parties to cover the whole area. There were 4 parties dancing in front of Jagannath, and there was a party on each side and another party at the rear. So altogether there were 7 parties with 14 drums playing at once. They played together and danced together. It was very beautiful. So like this, the Sankirtan resounded and filled the 3 worlds. At first, Lord Chaitanya was wandering between the different Kirtan groups, and then he started using his special mystic powers, where he would simultaneously appear in all 7 groups. Everybody thought that Lord Chaitanya was present in their group. They were thinking, we are very fortunate that Lord Chaitanya is in our group. He is with us. He picked our group. We are the best Sankirtan group, specially blessed. They didn't know that he was in every group. In Chaitanya Charitamrita, it's explained that in the middle of the Kirtan procession of Lord Jagannath, Tapan Mishra came with garlands and sandalwood paste sent by King Prataprudra. Then Lord Chaitanya personally took the garlands and gave one to each of the devotees and put sandalwood pulp on all the devotees. This also shows that how Lord Chaitanya is so personal with all his devotees. In the same way that Krishna was very personal with his cowherd boys, Lord Chaitanya was very personal with his Sankirtan chanters. Srila Prabhupada explains that anyone who is preaching Krishna consciousness all over the world or preaching intensively, he becomes very dear to Krishna. Krishna is personally embracing him. By spreading Krishna consciousness, this is how you can become dear to Lord Krishna. Lord Chaitanya personally showed how he was very loving and kind to all his devotees, personally giving them garlands and sandalwood pulp. Now he put on sunblock, but previously it was sandalwood pulp. Now we put on sunblock, but previously it was sandalwood pulp. Sandalwood pulp is much more natural. Engaged kings, we can see that the mood of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Sankirtan movement is currently represented in a reflected form in ISKCON. Lord Chaitanya had a special leela with the king, Maharaj Prataprudra. King Prataprudra was doing so much service for Lord Chaitanya, but he was also banned from seeing Lord Chaitanya. He was not allowed because Lord Chaitanya said, I will not associate with kings because they have too many dealings with politics, money and sense gratification. So it is very contaminating for me to be with such an enjoyer. Actually, King Prataprudra was very sincere devotee, but Lord Chaitanya wanted to warn his followers to be careful in associating with very materialistic people. Because he associated with almost everyone except the king thought, everyone in my kingdom gets the mercy of Lord Chaitanya, but I am the only one who is deprived. The one thing that I want is to be able to associate with Lord Chaitanya, but I am the one person who cannot do it. So like this, he was feeling very frustrated and distressed. To keep him from committing suicide or doing anything rash, Lord Chaitanya gave the blessings to his son and gave his chadar to his son to give to the father. He was not an ordinary king, he was a devotee. Lord Chaitanya was just testing him. When Rath Yatra happened, Pratap Rudra Maharaj came, and although he was a royal king, he took the broom and swept the road before Lord Jagannath. The king had lots of subjects and employees, so he didn't have to clean the road himself, but he was doing it as a humble service to the Lord. When we had Rath Yatra in Birmingham, UK, the mayor swept the road. He said, actually, as a mayor, we don't need to sweep the road, but we have lots of employees who can do this job. But I am respectful to your culture, so I am doing it. Pratap Rudra Maharaj started this culture that before God we should be humble and meek, that even kings should take the lowly position. One time in Bangalore, we had Rath Yatra, and one former Vice President of India was invited to inaugurate the procession. Our temple president announced, following the custom of great kings of Orissa, we invite the vice president to sweep the road before the Lord Jagannath. Then the former vice president took the mic and said, we are now a democracy. We don't follow these customs, so I refuse to sweep the road before Lord Jagannath. The newspaper reporters were all writing in their books, but I didn't know what to do. He was the main guest. He was not supposed to inaugurate like that. So I said, yes, the vice president is correct. Now we are a democracy, government by the people, for the people. The people are now the kings. So I request all the people to sweep the road before Jagannath. And as a leader of the people present here today, I invite the vice president to sweep first. He didn't know how to get off it. He swept there for 1 microsecond. The next day, the newspaper headline came, Vice President of India refuses to sweep before God. But Pratap Rudra Maharaj was such a humble servant of Jagannath. He declared that his kingdom was Jagannath's property and he was just managing on behalf of Jagannath. That's why they were very special kings. They didn't build big palaces, they built big temples. They took a modest role like a prime minister. They thought Jagannath is the real ruler and we are his representatives. Pratap Rudra Maharaj actually won over Lord Chaitanya when he went and swept the road before the chariot of Jagannath. The Lord could see that he was a sincere devotee. In those days, kings were very pompous. For the king to take a broom in his hand was inconceivable. They were royalty, they didn't lift a hand. Everything was done for them. When he took the broom in his hand and swept, that was something big. It was a big statement he was making. In India, the sweepers are considered a low class of occupation, so the king would never be seen with the broom in his hand. But here the king took the broom and swept for Lord Jagannath, and Lord Chaitanya appreciated that. When Lord Chaitanya saw that the king was sweeping the road, he thought, all right, he is a devotee, let me give him some mercy. But the Lord had already declared that he wouldn't see the king, so how could he give him the mercy? To show the king mercy, Lord Chaitanya manifested 7 forms in 7 different kirtan parties at Rath Yatra, and he gave the king divine vision to see this Lord Chaitanya was in each kirtan party, and the king with mystical vision could actually see the 7 Lord Chaitanyas at once. With him was Ramanand Rai and a few other, and they could also see. They said, you see, you get the special mercy of Lord Chaitanya. That's why you can see. Sometimes Lord Chaitanya would be dancing, jumping in the air, and roaring like thunder, moving in circles like a wheel. At night, if you move a firebrand fast enough, it looks like a big circle. In the same way, Lord Chaitanya was moving so fast that it looked like a continuous circle. One solid Lord Chaitanya. That's how fast he was dancing. He could not see where he was in the circles, all the places at the same time, even in the daytime. Sometimes his hairs would stand on end, and sometimes he was perspiring, crying and trembling. Sometimes he crashed onto the ground and rolled on the ground. Nityananda would put his hands out and try to hold him. He would try to catch the Lord. He would be running after Lord Chaitanya. And Advaitacharya was walking behind the Lord, loudly chanting, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. The people were crowding in to see Lord Chaitanya's dance, so they made 3 circles of devotees holding hands. The first circle was under the care of Nityananda Prabhu. Then there was a second circle headed by Kashishwara and Govinda Das, and the third circle was Pratap Rudra Maharaj and his personal associates. They formed the outer circle around the 2 inner circles. So then King Prataparudra came down and was able to see Lord Chaitanya dancing from close up. Later the king went disguised as an ordinary citizen, as a Vaishnava. When Lord Chaitanya was taking rest, someone advised him to go dressed just like an ordinary Vaishnava, just wearing a chadar, dhoti and tilak. No crown, no jewels and no ministers, to see if he could get some seva. So Lord Chaitanya was resting during the break in the Rath Yatra parade when Jagannatha is offered bhoga at Viprasana. He was in one of the gardens alongside the route. At that time there were many gardens and there are still a few, but not maintained as before. The Lord was lying on a stone slab and Prataparudra Maharaj came up and asked the devotees, can I massage his legs? The devotees said yes. Then the king started massaging the Lord's legs and singing Gopi Geet, praying prayers by the gopis to Krishna from 10th canto Srimad Bhagavatam. In the Gopi Gita there is a verse that the greatest donor, the greatest benefactor is the one who gives you Krishna, who gives you the nectar of Krishna's glory. When the king said that verse, Lord Chaitanya suddenly stood up and said, I don't know who you are, but you have given me such nectarian verses. You are the greatest benefactor, but I have nothing to give you in return. I am a poor mendicant. I am a sannyasi. All that I can give you is an embrace. Then he hugged him and lay down again and closed his eyes. The king was in a state of shock. What more could he desire? We can see from this that a little seva does a lot. Just doing some humble seva, the king gained the special mercy of Lord Chaitanya and was given love of Godhead, love of Krishna. Okay, we'll continue from here onwards next time. Thank you for joining. Hare Krishna.